By the numbers 30 yeyears ago, Maryland was number 1. It was 105 degrees, and number 35 put the game away with a fumble recovery.
Saturday, Penn State travels to Maryland. It's not going to be 105 degrees, and hopefully the Maryland players are going to shake the Penn State players' hands before the game. Thank you, Randy Edsall. Karma is a...
Christian Hackenberg needs 11 completions, 29 pass attempts for just 74 yards passing to become the school's all-time leader in all 3 categories. And when you look at Maryland's defense, I really like his chances. The Blue White Tailgate is next.
And we welcome everyone to Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light. Steve Jones, Trey Bauer, Todd Sadowski, great to have you with us. Penn State loses to Ohio State 38-10 at Ohio Stadium on Saturday night. Let's get to our drive of the game brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. This is the key moment of the game altogether. Penn State right now down 24-10, and they drive downfield. Again, who's the guy? Saquon Barkley. Swing it to the right, Saquon. Well, you can't say goodbye because they finally do get the angle and take them down, but this puts Penn State in great position, guys. Look at this run, Trey. How do you tackle that?
Well, I mean, you can't. First of all, you don't coach it. I mean, you got a guy who's an explosive playmaker, and he's got it all going on.
He just has that ability, that lower body strength with the quickness. They run a reverse here, Todd. With Polk, they almost get there.
Yeah, I like this play call. He almost gets that first down marker, but Ohio State has good closing speed.
3rd and 2, you go to your big gun, and Barkley doesn't get it. So here on 4th down, guys, he has to throw this ball, no matter what. It's 4th down. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of probably overthinking the whole thing. I think that for him, he's got to get rid of the ball. He cannot take a sack in that situation.
And here's the key at this point, because at that point, Ohio State takes the ball, goes 85 yards. It's a 14-point swing in the game from the 10-minute mark to the 6-minute mark to go in the game. So that's our drive of the game, brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. All right, let's take a moment now and head to the update desk where Andrew Kalissa is chomping at the bit.
Thank you, gentlemen. Using that term loosely, of course. It's Throwback Weekend in Baltimore. The Little Terps will be wearing some retro unis that, actually look good. 1961 to honor their first and should be only win over Penn State. All reds with some white trim. Best uniforms they've worn in years. Penn State, by the way, will also be wearing their throwback all white. Your Health South injury update report, pretty clean this week. Cal Carter got dinged in the head last week late. Call him questionable for this week's game against Maryland. And in case you missed it, the USA Today, well, it's Back to the Future week. And they nailed it with one of their predictions 30 years ago. The public is more gullible, and I'm told that also includes university trustees and presidents. So hopefully Penn State could travel back in time to their winning ways against the Terps and claim a win this weekend. Guys?
All right, Maryland won the game last year, but the series is dramatically lopsided in favor of Penn State. Trey, you've played in a few of these games over the years, and Penn State with the big advantage in the series right there.
Well, I mean, the fact is, Maryland's a basketball school. Let's just say it. They're not a football school. I mean, Randy Edsall can say whatever he wants. Penn State has dominated this series. They got lucky last year beating Penn State. I think Penn State's going to really take it to them this year.
Well, they got them when they were down 20-19, and they still just barely won the game at Happy Valley. The first time ever they won at Happy Valley in Beaver Stadium. So, and unfortunately for Randy Edsall, he's not going to be around the next time to try and get 2 in a row.
No, he won't, and the game's going to be down in Baltimore. The other 2 times they played in Baltimore was at Old Memorial Stadium, and now they're going to play at M&T Bank Stadium. There is turmoil down there, but also there's mystery in this game. I have no idea what the heck they're going to, Does anybody know how they're going to play this game?
Well, they get a whole bye week to try and throw in some wrinkles, too. And that's the one thing Coach Franklin was talking about. Maryland is going to sell out to win this game. They're going to pull anything they can out to try and beat Penn State and get this victory. And they have 2 weeks to prepare. So, you know, they're trying something crazy. Maybe not exactly what the Colts tried, but, you know, something along those lines maybe.
I hope they're not trying what the Colts tried. that was bad. But at the same time, you're talking about a coaching staff. They know they're not going to be back. So what do they have to lose? Nothing.
No, they don't. I mean, the fact is they can play loose. They have a week to prepare, and they did score 24 points against Ohio State, which is pretty impressive. And, you know, they can obviously score points. They just can't stop anybody.
Yeah, what kind of turmoil do you see in all this from their side?
Well, I mean, look, Randy Edsall, really, this was his dream job. The guy's from York County, went to Susquehannock High School, and he was a Maryland fan growing up. That was the job that he targeted. He was really excited to get that job, was trying to build a program. They just could not build a defense, and they couldn't keep quarterbacks healthy. So the place is in turmoil, but as you mentioned, Steve, you just don't know what to expect from these guys because sometimes they show up, and they're awfully tough to stop. Penn State's offense had better execute well and just outscore them.
Well, I always have a saying, though, at some point you do remember who you are. So you can try a bunch of things, but at some point each team remembers who they are. Coming up, we'll take a look back at the Nittany Lion offense from Saturday night and also take a look ahead as to their matchup with Maryland. So we'll continue with the Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light. Great to have you with us. In the game on Saturday night, one of the criticisms was leaving Christian Hackenberg in the game the entire time. Now, look at NFL games. Quarterbacks play the entire time no matter what unless they get hurt. Well, this is what he did the other night, and I'm frankly speaking, presented by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. James Franklin addressed that question, which he was asked 5 times in Tuesday's press conference.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously we could have put Trace in. I think you guys are going to see that you know, over time that our staff and our players and me specifically are really, really competitive. And I think it's hard to put your backups in the game before the game is over. It's almost like waving a white flag, and that's not kind of who I am or who we will be. We're going to fight to the last play of the game. Is there a fine line in that? Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think he should have been taken out of the game. I mean, I respectfully disagree. I think that he's clearly your best player on offense. He's your leader. He goes down. It's going to be a really long season, and I just think that he made a mistake.
I respectfully disagree with Trey. I don't have a problem with it at all. The guy's in his second year. He's trying to instill a mentality amongst his players. And I don't have a problem with him staying in the game other than the injury. If the injury's evaluated and his knee's okay and he can go out and play, then I don't have a problem with him instilling that as a philosophy.
And I respectfully feel that the player of the week presented by the Family Clothesline is Saquon Barkley. 194 yards in the game for Saquon Barkley. But that's not his career high in his short career. He actually had 195 earlier in the season. He just ripped off big plays. And he has the ability to take, now that one was called back, but he has the ability to take a 2-yard play and make it an 8-yard play. You can't put a price on this guy right now.
He gets to the edge awfully quick. And one of the things that I enjoyed about watching the game the other night and watching Saquon Barkley is you're getting comparable athletes on the field with Ohio State. They're not all there yet, but it was encouraging to see him get to the edge and make those 2-yard gains. What would normally be 2 yards, turn them into 8 yards, or to make a guy miss. I mean, we're going to get those comparable athletes on the field. That was the #1 team in the country on the field, and we were able to give Barkley the ball and him just create. It was unbelievable.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Todd, about comparable athletes, because I was thinking about this on the bus after the game, and I thought, can't wait to come back here in 2 years when Barkley's a junior, Polk's a junior. You know, you start going through the list of guys where Allen's a senior, Haley's a senior, where you've grown up a bit and you've added more athletes into the mix. Because as much as we marvel about Brandon Polk, look how fast Polk is. Ohio State has 4 of them on the field at once. Barrett, Miller, Wilson, Marshall. They have four that same guy in the field at one time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was clear to me that Penn State is just not there yet. I mean, clearly Ohio State is deeper. They're very well coached. We just don't have the horses right now, or the horses we have are kind of ponies. They're like younger guys, and once they develop, I think we're going to, they're going to have, Ohio State's more than going to have their hands full with us.
Well, Secretariat was the 2-year-old horse of the year, then became Triple Crown winner. And Saquon Barkley right now is James Franklin's Secretariat.
I do think that Saquon Barkley has some special qualities. And I think his ability to make guys miss and break tackles, I've said that to you guys before about that's how you evaluate a running back is by making people miss and breaking tackles. And he has the ability to do that.
And not only that, there was another player in the game. Penn State actually had a 194-yard rusher and a 100-yard receiver in the game. Of course, Godwin had 102 yards receiving. Guys, he makes tough catches.
He does. And for Hackenberg to only have 7 completions, and he has a 100-yard receiver in Chris Godwin. So there was only a couple of times he made some connections, and they went deep. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I love the way he positions himself in the 50-50 balls. And he just knows how to use his balance. He knows how to use his body a little bit like a basketball player, and he gets himself in good position, concentrates, and brings the ball in.
Yeah, and the tight ends now, Gesicki did have a big drop. Everyone knows it. Gee, it's odd. Oddly enough, Mike seems to be the first one to know it. But Brenneman got back in the mix with Kyle Carter out, so that gets another body out there that at least has played before and at least understands the game a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important down the stretch to get the tight ends involved. Eddie Loft, my friend, I'll say that again. I think that Gesicki, I think he just has a kind of a confidence issue right now, and I think that they got to continue to throw to him, and then Brenneman's got to step up and he's got to be able to play.
And Trey, not only the confidence issue with Gesicki, but it becomes a confidence issue with Christian Hackenberg. Sure. 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. Who do you like to go to? Your big tight end in those conversions to keep the chains moving. And right now, I would imagine Christian Hackenberg doesn't have a lot of confidence in those critical situations to throw to Gesicki.
In the intro, which was so beautifully put together by the three of us, Mr. Sadowski mentioned the pass defense of Maryland, and you did not seem to have a lot of confidence in it.
No. I mean, this is a team that's averaging 34 points scored against them, and a lot of that damage is done through the air. So we talk about the receivers not getting enough separation. We talk about the tight ends maybe not being involved enough. Everybody should be ready to go for this particular game, and everyone should be seeing the ball and be in open space.
Let's face it, they play that soft zone. That's what they play, and they get burned by it often enough. For Chris Godwin, still challenges along the way to make those plays against that zone.
I think the main thing for us is just being efficient on 1st and 2nd down. You know, not getting into the 3rd and long, 3rd and 7+ situations. I think will definitely skyrocket our 3rd down percentages. You know, when you get to the 3rd longs, it kind of shrinks the playbook and what you're able to do. You know, and teams are able to kind of like pinpoint on some plays that you can run.
3rd down though, 28% right now. I mean it has been a struggle to keep drives alive.
Well, I mean, you're not going to beat anyone converting less than a quarter of your 3rd down conversions. I mean, it's been an issue the entire year. It's kind of like what we talked about last year with the offensive line being an issue. 3rd down conversions or lack thereof is just a huge part of the game, and Penn State's just not getting it done right now.
This is the elixir, this team, the Terrapins, because they're terrible on 3rd down defensively. They're like 39% giving it up. So this is the game you should fix that problem. And one of the things I'd like to see out of Christian Hackenberg is have a little better awareness on the 3rd and 4th and shorts. We mentioned that play 4th and 2. Saquon Barkley, of course, was out in the flat all alone. And that's not just to say, hey, you got to recognize when somebody's alone. But your progressions 1, 2, 3, you should know who can beat the man even if he's covered. I mean, Saquon Barkley can make just about anybody miss. You got 4th and 2. If you got to have confidence in somebody, get him the ball before he reaches that tackler. The chances are he's going to make the guy miss and get 2 yards.
Cameron Johnston was outstanding last week, as he has all season long for Ohio State. He's averaging better than 47 yards a punt. Of the 33 punts he's had this year, he's dumped 14 inside the 20. How many inside the 10? Penn State tried the directional punt. Didn't happen. Penn State's average drive start the 16 on Saturday night. Ohio State's the 36 guys. In 13 possessions on each side, you're down 260 yards in field position before you even get going. Kill it. I mean, that's part of the formula.
Tough to overcome. Definitely tough to overcome. And that's not going to change this week. We talked about the punting. Coach Franklin did. Do you get away from the directional punting? Not when Will Likely is back there to catch it.
That's an issue. 4 career punts for touchdowns in his career, including 2 this year. Into the film room we go. Andrew Callista and Jay Paterno will break it down for us in a moment as we continue on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Coors Light.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Coors Light. Time to go inside the film room with Coach Jay Paterno. Coach, thanks for being here this weekend. Appreciate it.
Look at this, shaking hands.
Yeah, it's not hard, really. You'd think they could get it down this week. We hope so. But, Coach, talking about Maryland, obviously Penn State, you don't want to lose back-to-back games to the Terps. Maryland offense, though, they're struggling a little bit. Penn State should have the upper hand.
Yeah, Maryland's offense has been erratic this season, but I think they've stabilized with Perry Hills as their quarterback, and I think he's made a big difference. He's averaged 96 yards a game rushing, 240-something yards total offense when he's been in the games for Maryland, and they're averaging over 30 points a game with him and much less without him. So I think he's really done a nice job solidifying it. We'll talk about what it means. Let's take a look at this first slide. He's a running quarterback. And as a running quarterback, he's going to give you some different threats for Penn State. Starting out first with just pass rush. It's going to be very important when you get a running quarterback that you stay in your pass rush lane. You see the line of scrimmage here. You're going to want to see Penn State's inside guys push this back, and then that puts a lot of pressure where he can't step up, and now all of a sudden the defensive ends can make their things happen. Let's take a look at the video. We got 2 shots. Really, this happened last year. On the right side there for the defense, that's Nassib making a sack last year against them, making the play, but the push inside really makes it happen. The same thing is going to happen on this. You see the push inside, forces him, he can't step up, can't run, can't get loose on the inside. The other element of a running quarterback is obviously the run game designed runs. Penn State here, they want to be in 2 safeties high. What running quarterbacks tend to give you a problem with is if you want to keep 2 safeties high, the numbers work in your favor in the run game. Here, you're going to see Maryland's wideout come back here and crack on the linebacker. You're going to have a lead back with the back here, and you're going to have them be able to take care of the support. We take a look at the video, and you see how he's going to come around the edge with guys blocking and be able to get 7-8 yards without really any threat there. The other thing that's going to do, it's going to force Penn State into some 3-deeps and get into some different coverage. It's going to open up the pass game. Now, one other element of the running quarterback is it holds the backside guys. Here you're going to see these guys can collapse. Zettel can collapse. The end can collapse because they're not worried about the quarterback keeping it. That's going to change this year. Now, we go to the video. You'll see Zettel does a great job because they're not really worried about that off the edge. He can come in there, make something happen. All he's got to do in these zone reads is beat his one-on-one block. And Zettel, I like Penn State's chances anytime Zettel's one-on-one with somebody. Creates a big turnover here in the game last year.
Sickles, Zettel had big games last year for the Lions, but a big part this year is going to the punt game. Penn State's struggling right now.
No question. And a struggling punter who kicks the ball out of bounds right now, that might be an advantage for Penn State this week because Will Lively, Maryland's punt returner, is extremely dangerous. One of the keys is going to be, if you're a fan watching the game, how quickly can these front guys protect and get out? Here on the first one, we'll take a look at the video on the first one from last year. You're going to see that ball. There's guys from Penn State. They're out and down the field unblocked, so Will doesn't have a chance to even get started. The next one you're going to see, we can get another shot of it here. The next one you're going to see now, they get a chance. They're not quite as open. Will Lively makes the guy miss. They don't make the tackle. He makes a nice return, sets Maryland up for the game-winning drive.
Yeah, that set up the long field goal that the Terp kicker was able to hit. This year, though, a little bit different situation for the Terps on defense. A lot of struggles. Penn State should be able to take advantage.
You think? Penn State's got to do a better job. They have underperformed against most of the defenses they have played statistically based on those teams' history. We'll take a look at Maryland now. We go to the first slide. Number 7 for Maryland is a guy to keep your eye on. Last year, he had a sack in the game. Here, Penn State runs a play-action pass where they're bringing not only a guard to block him, but also a back off the fake to block him. We go to the video. You see how relentless he is. He recognizes what's happening, gets around the edge, makes a sack, and if Penn State's going to have any success, they're going to have to protect Hackenberg on this one. You'll see the video, another shot of it right there. Now, For a fan at home, one of the things you want to notice early on, Hackenberg was limping a little bit last week in the game. Got to see how mobile he is, because what that does when you have a quarterback that can come out on play action fakes, it slows down the backside pursuit. You're going to see on this play last year, they make the handoff to the running back, and that end barely stops. He's right down there to get on the play. Take a look at this on this video coming up. You're going to see the backside end goes. He gets in on the play, makes something happen. So if Hackenberg's not able to move, it's going to be difficult. Same thing in the pass game. A quarterback that's a little bit hampered, can't move, they're going to know where he is. They're going to know where the launch point is. They're going to be able to attack the pass protection and get to him and make sacks. And Penn State's got to avoid that. They got to keep them off him. The other thing Maryland will do is the change up now. They'll get into some man-to-man when they want to stop the run game. Watch and see how they play that. If that's the case, then Penn State's going to have to beat these guys one-on-one, make some things happen. And here, again, from last year, you take a look at the video, you'll see they do a nice job with the release up the top, gets inside them, Hackenberg stays in there, delivers that play, delivers that ball, makes something happen. You'll see a nice read, nice shot of it right here, and that's going to happen for Penn State. Got to make those things happen. The final thing I want to talk about, just with the one-on-one stuff, they've got to be able to take advantage of the fact that Will Likely is only a 5'7" corner. Here last year, they try and throw a fade. Receiver makes his move way too far away. He's able to cut this thing off. Also, splits are important. When you give that tight split inside the red zone, they know what's coming. Take a look at the video, and you'll see how far away he makes his move, and now the corner's able to cut it off and make the play on it and gives Penn State problem in the red zone.
Last year, field position was a big thing, not only on Penn State's punt problems, but also with the turnovers they had.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to be vital. Maryland's average scoring drive was only 33 yards last year. That's way too short. Penn State handles that. It'll be all right.
In theory, Penn State offense should get it done. Take a look at the Penn State defense coming up next on the Blue White Tailgate Show.
The Penn State defense, again against Ohio State, a couple long drives by the Buckeyes in that one. Ohio State did a great job in the second and fourth quarters. The Penn State defense did a great job in the first and third quarters, but that doesn't add up. You need a four-quarter effort against them. Carl Nassib, though, is our Family Clothesline Defensive Player of the Week. Another outstanding week for a guy that just continues to have another outstanding, just a great season for him. Check him out, Trey, in terms of his ability to get to him. There's Zettel, and here comes Nassib all the way over. Just pure effort all the way across the field.
He just never stops. He continued. He plays to the whistle. I mean, as a coach, that's what you want. You want the guys going until they blow the whistle, and he just has a great motor and just a great attitude.
I mean, he had a great matchup against Ferris. We talked about that last week. He's got another good matchup coming up this week as well, which is also going to be favorable to him at that right tackle spot. So, because Prince is over at that right tackle spot.
He's a mid-season All-American for good reason. He's gotten a sack in every single game. So if you like consistency, you like Carl Nassib, and you expect to see a sack against the Terrapins for sure.
Yeah, well, Damian Prince is going to be the matchup against him. That is going to be a favorable one for him in this game in terms of a matchup to watch for in this game. Now let's get to what he's been able to do. What have you seen, Trey, in him? Because he actually started to get in there a little bit in the opener against Syracuse 2 years ago and slowly has worked himself to this point. What do you see in his development?
Well, I think for him, again, it's like you can't coach aggressiveness. You can't coach heart and the way that he goes about his business. I mean, every single play, he's ready to go. And literally, I mean, the way he thinks about it is like no one's going to be able to block him. And so far this year, they've had a very difficult time doing it.
In a stunning move, Urban Meyer's named J.T. Barrett his starting quarterback. And I mean, he's the guy that took the game over, Todd. He took the game over Saturday night.
That was just thick with sarcasm, was it not, Steve?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, couldn't you have kept Cardell Jones in just a little bit longer? Yes. I mean, the Nittany Lions were having no issues with Cardell Jones, and J.T. Barrett comes in there, and all of a sudden, how do you stop Barrett, Elliott, and Miller? You don't, is the answer. Yeah. And especially when the guy's making just great decisions. You give it to Elliott up the middle, it's tough to stop him, and then Barrett holds on to it. I mean, the touchdown run he could have ran for back and forth on the football field a couple of times. And it was just really, really impressive. And the reason why, they're the defending national champs and the #1 team in the nation.
When in doubt, give it to last year's Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. Okay. Perry Hills, now he's 45-3. He's a little bit better record than I have at Ohio State. Perry Hills, though, similar in style, Trey. How do you, when you face a dual threat, what are the important things you have to remember?
Well, I think it's really important that you have to bring your feet, on defense. And I thought that we, as a group on Saturday, was the worst performing, worst tackling game we had of the season. I mean, there were so many missed tackles. I'm sure they're going to work on that. But, I mean, you have to be in a good position. You have to bring your feet. And you got to hang on. You got to hang on. Guys got to fly to the ball. And that's the only way you're going to stop them.
Todd, you have not been enamored with the Maryland defense. I've picked up on that as the show has gone along. What about the Maryland offensive line?
Well, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's probably not a match for Penn State's defensive line, and not many offensive lines have been. They had to bring in Barrett to make it a difference maker against Ohio State. So I'm not so sure they're going to be able to run the ball successfully, certainly not for 4 quarters. He's going to have to make really good decisions, and he's going to have to move the chains with his arm.
And Carl Nassib knows mission number 1, they have to stop the run.
I love the run game more than the pass game, to be quite honest. I love stopping the run, and that's just going to be our main goal. It really starts with stopping the run and getting to them to 3rd and longs, and that's where, you're able to tee off. But, Coach Shoop, has 3 main things, stop the run, take the ball away, and no big plays. So, we're going to do that this week.
We now get to our hit of the week, brought to you by our good friends at the BJC. Hit of the week occurred. Akeel Lynch with the ball. Cam Williams on this play, guys, called for targeting. Your thoughts? I mean, obviously, personal foul, helmet to helmet, should have been a target.
I think so. I mean, the fact is that he literally led with his head. He stuck his nose in there. I mean, back in the day when I was playing, that's how you were supposed to tackle. It's a new game now, and people are very cognizant of that. The rules have changed, and you got to follow the rules. I mean, I'm a rule follower.
The question,
Wow.
I'm sorry, yeah. I just couldn't continue after hearing that. The question becomes, do you eject these guys? And, we were talking before this segment began at the Michigan State game, how they got rid of the Michigan linebacker, and he was actually kind of pushed into the defender. So do you eject the guys after these targeting calls? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be, obviously it's in the referee's hands, but there seem to be just, as soon as they see the targeting, gone. No question about it.
It's helmet to helmet. So that's a personal foul. After that, it becomes a booth judgment call. We'll talk about Maryland in a moment as we continue on Blue White Tailgate. Well, class shows. So there was last year's lack of a handshake. Okay. It's been a tough season for Maryland. I think pretty obvious when you fire the coach in the middle of the season. It's been a tough year for you. He got a contract extension kind of thin in the summertime, and then he's gone. Mike Loxley now takes over, and the Loxley file is as follows. He was the head coach actually in New Mexico for a couple of years where it didn't go well. But he has a long history, even goes back to the Maryland days, and he's the offensive coordinator. So,
yeah, well, Coach Franklin worked with Loxley for a couple of years at Maryland. Here's what I like about him. He's a former Towson Tiger, defensive back for my alma mater, which, by the way, we'll get into G Block. They upset Stony Brook, Trey. Well, more on that a little bit later. But, Steve, you alluded to this. What do they have to lose? They're going to try just about everything they can try. He's been a head coach before. Is this an audition for another head coaching job? I don't know. We'll see how creative they can get. But they're in a good position, in a sense, to say, let's give it a shot. What do you got to lose?
They're also down another assistant coach, too, because the linebacking coach also went in the firing, and that position is vacant. Grad assistants are now taking that and so forth. Now let's take a look at the Maryland defense.
Or lack thereof.
Todd, why don't you take us through these numbers since you appear to be very well versed on.
This can't be right? 457 yards a game in total defense, rushing defense, almost 200 yards a game. Can you say Saquon Barkley left, Saquon Barkley right? I mean, we're going to see a lot of the Nittany Lions trying to run the ball.
Jermaine Carter is their leading tackler at middle linebacker. He has 63 tackles this year. Then there's Yannick Ngakoue on the outside. Ngakoue has 7 sacks so far this year. He is actually a threat off the edge that you're going to have to be aware of, number 7, the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that how we should go about this game is to run Saquon Barkley. I mean, I would like to see us throw less than 20 times. I mean, literally, just take the ball and run it down their throats, and we have the ability to do that.
Well, Chris Godwin will still walk into that stadium with a lot of respect for the Maryland defense until proven otherwise.
Things like that are pretty big. You know, we have to be completely locked into the game plan and what the defense is going to do to us, so that if they bring a blitz and we're hot, like we have to be ready for that, or just like any coverage that the defense gives us. You know, they have a good secondary, and so we have to be ready for all the challenges that they present this week.
Well, he's only 5'7", but he plays like he's 6'7", and that's Will Likely. He is an outstanding punt returner, 7 career interceptions as well, because obviously people have tried to pick on him over the years, and he has stood the challenge. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and for James Franklin, he is the threat in this game you have to watch for the entire time.
And now this week you're playing Maryland and Likely, who's got, I think, 3 returns for touchdowns, 2 punts and a kickoff, if I'm correct on that. You know, the last thing you want to do is leave the ball in the middle of the field with 53 1/3 for a guy to work with. So I do think that's something that we've discussed about obviously taking some of that pressure off him and allowing him to just bang it as far as they possibly can down the field and put the pressure on the coverage unit. I don't think this is the week to do that.
Yeah, that's the problem right there. You like to just look at the punters and do what you did last year and say, look, just kick it away, quote, we'll cover it and go from there. That's the wrong guy to do it on this week.
Well, and that's the spark that the Terrapins get with Will Likely, that he can provide for the team and what you want to avoid. You want to get in front of this team and keep pounding away at them, and you certainly don't want them to get energized and get back into it because of a special teams touchdown.
Oh, and by the way, they slipped him into the game against Ohio State on offense and ran a jet sweep with him. Again, everything's open in this game, so keep in mind that 4 might show up on offense too, Trey. And you got to, as a player, are you always aware of what personnel is out there, or are you looking at formation?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the fact is you have to be aware of who was on the field. I mean, I remember my senior year when Tim Brown won the Heisman Trophy. We literally were punting the ball out of bounds. We didn't kick him the ball. We didn't want him to have the ball. Joe was like, I don't want that kid to have the ball. And we ended up upsetting them, and they were ranked number 1. So.
He had 2 catches in the entire game, if I recall, and Blair Thomas had a huge game running behind Steve Wisniewski on a very cold day. The Maryland offensive struggles, there have been some this year for them. They've finally settled on a quarterback. I think settling on a quarterback, Todd, is the big part here. Now that it's Perry Hills, I think that really has settled them down a bit offensively.
Well, Ohio State just named J.T. Barrett as their guy. I mean, there's something about consistency in the huddle for everyone else around you. Who is our leader? Who can we count on when we need them the most? And obviously, the other guy wasn't making good decisions. Had thrown 12 interceptions row. So they lead the nation with 17 interceptions. But, Steve, as you had mentioned to me earlier, look, that's kind of off the table because Hills has kind of stabilized things with the offense.
Caleb Rowe had 12 of those interceptions, and he is not playing except when being the holder for the outstanding place kicker, Brad Craddock, last year's Lou Groza Award winner, who's only attempted 6 field goals the entire season. Brandon Ross gives them power at running back. Wes Brown, a little bit of speed out there. Laverne Jacobs, their top wideout as well. But there are hidden issues here as well as we take a look here for them. And those are the hidden issues right there. Again, once again, guys, all at the bottom of the conference.
I mean, you can't. That turnover margin is huge. I mean, you can't. You cannot turn the ball over. Certainly, when you're getting up in the food chain, you know, Division I, big-time college football, you really have to protect the ball, and they're not doing a good job.
And then there's the other part to this too. When you look at all this, you talked about the 3rd down conversion rate. What about Penn State getting off to a fast start in this game? How much would that pay off?
Well, look, we can sit here and talk about the personnel and the defense not being good, but Penn State's offense just has to execute. They have not been able to piece it together early in the game, coming out in the first quarter, and really just look sharp right from the get-go. That would really be nice to see against Maryland coming up. Put this team down early and see what happens. And they haven't been able to finish all the time either in a complete effort. So that's what you're looking for from the offense. Defensively, they're taking care of their business. The offense needs to handle theirs.
When the team is down and out, don't give them any hope of letting them off the carpet. okay? If you keep them down, they'll stay down. Coming up, Rick Pizzo talks to Andrew Callista as we continue on Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Coors Light. Yo, Steve, I told you Rick Pizzo couldn't do the show this week. Instead, we bring in Sean Merriman, guy who knows a thing or two about the Big Ten. Sean, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Penn State, Maryland, Sean, a lot of, hostility last year. Maryland finally got their second win against the Lions. The pregame handshake, what did you make of it last year? How do you think things are going to go in pregame this year?
Yeah, certainly a new rivalry that I think as, Big Ten fans around the nation were curious to see how it played out. It became no secret that these two teams probably don't like each other too much. So I think that, fans across the country are excited to see round two, see how it will play out. Penn State, looking better so far. Need good play from Christian Hackenberg, need the running game to continue to step up. Maryland has been struggling this season. There's no doubt about it. One of the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. So, Penn State wants to continue to build and continue to enhance their bowl chances, get to a good bowl game. I think this is a game that you would like to see them win and win in convincing fashion.
You mentioned the struggles right now that Maryland's having. What's the vibe around the BTN offices of what's going on there with Mike Locksley taking over, Randy Edsall being fired right before the bye week?
Yeah, heading into the season, I think that we had pretty high expectations for Maryland, given the success they had last year. Randy Edsall out, they bring in Mike Locksley, kind of a new look to this Maryland program. Interested to see what direction this thing is going to go and if he can pick up and win some games. Now a Penn State team, they get a Penn State team that I think has looked better as of late. The offensive line has improved after that dreadful start this season. I'm looking forward to a good game here and looking forward to, to see Penn State if they can take control of this game and come away with a victory.
You mentioned Christian Hackenberg. At times we see why he was picked preseason as maybe the top overall quarterback taken in the NFL draft, but we see the struggles as well. Do you think it's more geared towards the scheme that the Franklin staff is running, or is it maybe with personnel that's currently on the field?
Well, I think a lot has to do with personnel. I mean, look, the guy had an extremely tough time last year staying up on his feet. Then you lose his top tackle, Donovan Smith, to the NFL. So what's going to happen? They bring in a JUCO kid, and Terrence Palmer has really struggled so far. But I think that this offensive line has gotten steadily better. Are they still a good unit? No, I think that they're still building their way towards getting to that point. We do a player ranking segment every week, myself and our senior writer. Christian Hackenberg was amongst the top players coming into the season, as you mentioned. He hasn't been on the list since then all year. No doubt the coaching staff has to make things simpler for him, but what's going to make that easier is if he continues to get a really strong presence in the running game. That's only going to make his job easier, and I think that they found an absolute gem in Saquon Barkley.
You just talked about Say, as I like to call him. Your impressions of what he did out at the shoe last week, and where is he on that top players in the conference list currently?
He has been outstanding. If I had to pick someone as the Big Ten Freshman of the Year right now, he would probably be my pick. 190-plus yards last week, the kid, and that wasn't at full health. For a young kid to come in, pick up this offense as he can, because let's be honest, I think a lot of people had high expectations for him, but they thought that Akeel Lynch would kind of be the guy, and Saquon Barkley would be behind him. He has surpassed Lynch after some injury issues. And I think Saquon Barkley has a chance to not only be on an all-Big Ten freshman team, he has a chance to be a freshman All-American if he continues to put up numbers like he is so far.
All right, Sean, thank you so much for your thoughts. As we check out the Blue White Tailgate recruiting update, not much to talk about, so let's keep it to three guys on the roster. Wide receiver Dwan Johnson started the year in the yellow to green category. Well, Coach Gaddis confirming that he is solidly a yellow right now. No use wasting his red shirt on about 5 plays per game. 2 other guys of note, tight end Nick Bowers and offensive lineman Steven Gonzalez. They are taking reps with the number 2 offense. Appears that they, though, still are in the yellow category. Always important, those red shirts, in managing your scholarship table. For the latest, check out bwi.rivals.com. We get you back to the guys as we close out the Blue White Tailgate Show.
Yes, indeed. 1978. Penn State beat Maryland 27-3. Two teams ranked in the top 5 at that time. Bob Bassett had a great catch of that game. Tommy Donovan played a great game. Chuck Fusina is going to the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame this weekend. Actually, more Heisman, first place Heisman votes that year than Billy Sims. He was the runner-up that year. We get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. We start with Captain Angelic.
Hey, all right. I'll take a good. I'll do it real quick. I saw the Maryland-Penn State game at Byrd Stadium in '93, 70-7. Penn State beat them. That was awfully good. But how about good from last weekend? The finish to the Michigan State game. Poor Blake O'Neal just drops the ball. Here comes the Spartans. And I love hearing the stories about people that left the stadium or turned the game off when they thought it was over and Michigan was going to run the clock out, and then they see the final score and realize the Spartans actually won the game, which I predicted last week, just not in that fashion.
My bad is a follow-up to that. The social media treatment of Blake O'Neal. An absolute disgrace. Either stop following sports or stop gambling, but don't treat someone who already has 2 degrees in his life and is working on a 3rd with that kind of vile. It's wrong, and it's bad for sports and society.
Well, the ugly, other than Andrew Kalis's golf swing, is Penn State 1 for 11 third down conversions in the shoe. Okay, we're converting less than 30% of our third down conversions. That is about as ugly as it's going to get for Penn State to have the season that they're trying to get to, 8 wins, 9 wins, whatever. They can't be converting less than 30% of third downs.
All right, hot topic this week. You guys want to say anything about whatever Pat Narduzzi said earlier this week?
I don't know why even when we give him the time of day. I mean, Pat Narduzzi's the head coach at Pitt. We don't like Pitt. I hate Pitt, actually. I mean, I don't hate him as much as Notre Dame, or kind of, but who cares what Pat Narduzzi says?
I'll say this. I just can't wait till they play. It starts next year. 4 years in a row. We'll find out on the field.
We'll find out how good they are. Yeah.
AP Top 25. Here we go. Let's take a look at it. The #1 ranked team in the country, obviously, Ohio State. There's Baylor, which won big again. Utah, big win for them over Arizona State. Then we go all the way through, and you see Florida there, sitting there. And Pitt's now there at 25 to their credit. Temple's 22. Good for Temple. 22 right now. All right, here we go with our games. Texas A&M, Ole Miss. I know you love SEC football, and Ole Miss is at home in Oxford.
Well, I mean, I felt bad. They lost their best player to an injury. The fact is they were exposed last week that Ole Miss is better than they were, but they're still not a top 25 team, in my opinion.
All right, Clemson and Miami, Todd.
Well, Clemson's one of those teams very likely to run the table in the ACC. One of those teams you think, well, I don't know about these matchups. Could be a trip-up game, but I think they're going to get past them.
You were talking to us before the show how excited you were to watch Indiana play Michigan State.
No, not really. But I do think you can only try to contain Xander Diamant. And I think that if Michigan State's going to lose this season, it could be on Saturday.
Ohio State at Rutgers. Todd said, what's the primetime game?
Yeah, it says something about this week's games that Ohio State's in primetime. I look for J.T. Barrett to just roll all over the Scarlet Knights.
Our mystery matchup last week, Towson did win 21-14. This week, John Stroh, he is a Slippery Rock guy. They play IUP.
I'll tell you what, Slippery Rock, 6-1, playing IUP, 5-1. It's a big matchup. It's a whiteout game for Slippery Rock. Okay. We'll see what happens, but I think Slippery Rock wins a close.
And our director, Adam, IUP grad, he's looking at those guys to take it.
Jim Haslett, by the way, his son plays at IUP, so we'll go there. All right, Aaron's keys to the game. Trey, get rolling.
I think for us, we need to run the ball. We need to establish the running game, and we just have to literally step on their neck and don't let them up, and I think Penn State will be fine.
Play with the lead. Run the ball. Todd?
6 points, not 3. They have got to finish their drives. They will move the ball on the Terrapins. They have got to plug it into the end zone, hopefully without any holding calls to bring back a touchdown.
Ooh, okay. Well, that wraps it up for this week. For Trey, Todd, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by our good friends at Coors Light.